So you went and got yourself a law degree. Congratulations! And welcome to the Happy Lawyer Project. I'm your host, Akoma Moronu. I created the show to help lawyers learn how to work in their gift and live their passions. Together with my guest, we explore mindset, goal setting, productivity, and everything else you might need to find your happy. Today I'm joined by Janine Esbrand. Janine is an in-house attorney, coach to lawyer moms, fellow podcaster, mother, and new friend of mine. On this episode, we talk about her journey and how she helps her clients find their happy. Let's get to the show. Thank you so much for being on with me today, Janine.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super duper excited to be here.
Great. I'm so happy to have you. Why don't we just start a little bit with your background, and why don't you let people know how you got to be where you are today?
Okay, so I am a lawyer and a life and career coach for lawyer mums. I started out my career as a corporate lawyer. I qualified just over 4 years ago and was practicing as a corporate lawyer up until I went on maternity leave over a year and a half ago. And now I have gone back to work, but I shifted from working as a corporate lawyer to working as in-house counsel on a part-time basis. So I work part-time 3 days a week, and the rest of my time is spent with my son. And then I also run my life coaching business, which is called Lightbox coaching. And I help lawyer mums with the transition from being a lawyer into motherhood when I'm coaching. And in terms of my journey to getting here, I decided quite young that I wanted to be a lawyer. So I think when I was about 8 years old, my parents would comment on how argumentative I was. And my mum mentioned one day that she thought I should be a lawyer. And that was kind of where the seed was planted for me. And from that point, I just kind of figured out what it was I needed to do to get to being a lawyer, because I wasn't surrounded by any lawyers in my family or any friends or anything. And so I watched a lot of Ally McBeal, Law and Order, and loads of legal dramas, and kind of got an idea as to what being a lawyer would be like, which I now realize is not the real deal. But yeah, so I went from that point, and then I spent a year abroad after university. I spent a year in New York working for a law firm in Manhattan, came back from that, and then did law school in the UK, and then what we call a training contract, which is like a 2-year working placement before you then officially qualify as a lawyer. So that was kind of my journey to qualification.
I think that a lot of what you're saying will resonate with people, especially when you talk about being told that you are good at arguing and then kind of watching the TV shows and kind of getting an idea about lawyering. I think a lot of people share that story. But you also mentioned that it wasn't exactly what you thought it would be. What about being a lawyer surprised you the most?
I think I kind of went into the idea that I wanted to really help people. So I thought, yeah, I want to be a lawyer. I want to change the world, which I know a lot of people can probably relate to as well. But when I actually got into practicing, I spent some time before I qualified as a corporate lawyer, paralegaling in different roles and working within different organizations, just so I could kind of get a feel for the type of area I wanted to work in. And when I worked for a criminal firm, I didn't feel like that was for me. I didn't feel like it sat very well with my ethics. So I struggled with that. And then I decided I wanted to be more of a commercial corporate lawyer, and I was good at that. I was good at that type of work. And so that's what I went into. But then I felt like there was something missing, that I was helping people to make money, but I wasn't really helping people on the personal level. I wasn't getting that sense of personal satisfaction that I thought I would get going into being a lawyer. And I also didn't know that there was so much admin involved. You know, you just see people rocking up in court and representing their client or in negotiations and having these really exciting, heated meetings. But you don't see behind the scenes where you're sat behind your desk at like 3 a.m. with piles and piles of paper, reviewing 100-page documents and just wanting to tear your hair out. So I feel like there's so many hidden sides to the profession that you would only be able to get to know once you're in it. And so once I got into it, I was like, oh, okay. So this is it, is it? And so I'm not saying that I don't like parts of it, but there were parts of it that I didn't expect.
I think even what you're saying about the piles and piles of paper, I feel like TV even makes that seem glamorous.
Yeah, so true.
And I don't know if you felt this way, but I felt like the first year, like the first time I had to pull an all-nighter or the first time I had to like work through the weekend, it felt like I was living that life and it was like kind of exciting.
Yeah.
And then like each time it became like
But then the novelty wears off and you're like,
quite quickly.
I really did want to go to that party, or I really did want to meet my friend for dinner, but I have to cancel again. And people stop inviting you to things because they know you're going to cancel. And I was like, this isn't really good for my social life or other areas of my life.
I wanted to go back to something else you said about how with being a lawyer, you kind of, the seed was planted early on when you were young and, you know, someone said something to you that got kind of the thought rolling in your head. How did the seed get planted for coaching?
The point at which I decided, I need to do something different from just being a lawyer was when I went on a mission trip to Africa. I went with a group of Christian lawyers and we went to East Africa. So we spent some time in Kenya and we spent some time in Rwanda. And it was an amazing trip. We got the opportunity to train local people on the law. A lot of them didn't have access to justice, so they just didn't know what their rights were. And so we got to give them training. What impacted me the most was when we went into prisons and some of the people in the prisons had been just there without having had any type of hearing for some of them up to 2-3 years. They hadn't had a hearing because they just didn't have anyone that they could go to help them. They didn't have the resources. And I just thought that's crazy. Like you're just there. You just don't even know what the laws are. And we were able to run training sessions to educate them and help them figure out what it was they needed to do to make sure that they were getting that justice. So it was just such an amazing experience to see how our contribution for such a small group of people made such a lasting impact on some people's lives. So then when I came back from that trip, I came back to kind of, looking at disputes about unpaid gas bills or like just the run-of-the-mill stuff that you might be working on. And I was a trainee at the time, so I was moving around. At that point I was in litigation, and I just thought, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing? I've just come from making such an impact and now I'm just doing this. And I think that was the point where I was like, okay, I need to figure out another way to do something with my skills that's really going to help people. And then I can't remember exactly where I came across it, but I did some research online and I came across the opportunity to go on a 2-day coaching training course. It was a free course where it was like a taster session. So I went along and my mind was blown. I was literally like, oh my goodness, I've been doing this. I've been coaching people my whole life. Like I'm always that go-to person for my friends. I'm always the person that can kind of see a situation through, having the foresight to tell them, hey, if you do this, this is going to happen, or ask them questions to get them to challenge their thinking. And so realizing that there's actually a profession and that I would be able to do that and really help people, I just was like, yes, I absolutely need to do this. And then I jumped into the learning all about it, doing my training, and it just opened up a whole new world for me.
The thing I love most about your story is I love to hear, because it seemed like what you started the law was to help people, and then you kind of found this path back towards helping people, and so it naturally lit you up.
Yes.
And so many people get off the path, because I agree with you. So many people get into the law to help people, and then somehow they get off that path and they start following some other shiny object. Maybe it's money, maybe it's prestige. I don't know what it is for different people, but I think so many people then become scared to go back towards their original passion or calling or direction, whatever you want to call it. Did you feel like it was hard for you to make the transition away from the direction you were moving and kind of veer back towards your original calling?
Yeah, I think it was difficult. And I totally agree that for a lot of people it's hard, because going into the legal profession, there's so much that goes with that. You spend so much money trying to get into it, to do your training and get in. And then once you're in, there's so much, status and prestige that comes with it. So when you say to someone, I'm a lawyer, they automatically think, oh, you must be really smart, or, they have the connotations that go with that. And so being a lawyer then easily becomes part of your identity. So then to say, I've worked so hard to get here, people respect me for what I do, and then I'm going to say, actually, I'm not going to do this, I'm going to be a coach. And people are like, what is that? What kind of coach? Like a sports coach? Like a lot of people, especially in the UK, haven't really heard about the benefits of coaching. And so I think for me, it was hard. So when I initially did my training, I was kind of coaching people on the side of, doing my day job, but I wouldn't really tell anyone, like at work. I wouldn't share it with my colleagues that was something that I was doing, because I didn't want to take away from my status as a lawyer, and for people to think that I wasn't committed to being a lawyer still and wonder, why am I following this path? But I think for me, what made me realize that, I just need to do it, is because one, I enjoyed it so much, and two, I had some situations where two friends of mine in consecutive years passed away. And they were my age, like literally one of them was born 2 months after me and the other one was a year younger than me. And they both passed away from different forms of cancer. And it just hit me that, heck, life is too short. Like I would never have thought that I would be seeing people my age dealing with this kind of illness and then leading to them passing away. And so for me to just be like, oh, do you know what? I'm not going to pursue coaching because of what people think. I then realized that that's just not the right attitude, because if it's important to me and I can see that I can make an impact, then I need to do it. I can't let it hold me. I can't let the fact that people might think something hold me back. And once I went through that kind of process in my mind, then I was like, yeah, okay, I'm going to do it.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that about your friends, and I'm sorry that that was the catalyst for your change. But it's, I think that that's so common for people. It's usually some big change in their life or someone's life around them that gets them to really stop living their lives for other people or for these like external reasons. I don't know. Have you, in your experience, found any way to kind of shake people and get them thinking about living them lives for themselves without that sort of external catalyst? Like, I just haven't had much luck, because I think that people are either ready and have come to it on their own, or you just can't get people there.
Yeah, I think it is difficult. I think with the people that I've worked with who want to make a change and actually take action on it, they are at a place where they've decided that they want to make a change. And it might not be such, a situation that I just described. It might just be that they've had enough, that they're burnt out, that they've got to the point where they realize that it's not as important to them as it used to be. But I do think it has to come from the person getting to a place in some way where they've had enough. But I think what you can do is help people to realize that that is the issue. Because sometimes they'll come to you just, with complaining about work and like how hard it is and how miserable they are. And so getting them to realize what the root of that is important. So for some people, once you start challenging them and asking them questions and saying, well, is it the job or is it the environment? Is it the people that you work with? Is it the actual work? So if you were to change firms or move from being in private practice to in-house, do you think the situation would be the same? And when you ask people questions and get them to really think through, what is it that is causing me the issue? Like, why is it that I'm not feeling that this is working for me? Then you can start getting to the root of whether or not they do need to make a massive shift, or whether it's just a small thing that they can work on to change their mindset and change the way they feel about the work that they're doing.
That's fantastic. Yeah. You kind of said, you touched on this a little bit, but I'd love for you to go in a little bit deeper. For those of the listeners out there who don't know, how would you define coaching, and what is coaching? Who's coaching for?
Okay, so coaching it might be easier for me to describe what it's not first, and then I'll go into what it is. So it's not like therapy where you'd go to a counselor who would kind of dive into your past and trying to help you figure out why you're feeling the way you're feeling right now. And it's different also from mentoring, where you share with someone what your experience was and you're helping them to follow the same path as you. With coaching, it's very much forward looking. So you're looking at the situation that a person's in now, and you're looking at where they're trying to get to. And the coaching I like to describe as the bridge. So it's, you're standing in this place today and you'd like to be in another place in 12 months' time. The coaching process is the bridge to get you there. And it's very much a collaborative process. So it's based on asking a lot of probing questions and giving people the time and the space to kind of explore those questions, the answers to those questions without judgment. So you might ask, okay, why do I need a coach? I could speak to a friend. I could speak to a family member. But the difference is that when you go to a coach, it's someone who's impartial, someone who doesn't know your background, who is going to give you the ability to have accountability, but without the person saying to you, hey, well, you said you were going to do that last time and you didn't, or you're always trying new things and then you never follow through, or just giving you the feedback that you don't need, that's going to hold you back from actually moving forward. A coach is giving you the opportunity to just speak to someone as a sounding board first and foremost, and then have that person help you, hold your hand almost through the process that you need to go through to get to your destination.
Have you worked with a coach before?
Yeah, I work with a coach now, actually. I have a coach. Most coaches have coaches.
Yes, no, I have a coach as well, and I love my coach. I have 2 coaches actually right now.
Oh, really? I have one, and she's so amazing. The thing is, it's just, once you get into coaching and you have a coach, you're just like, I just wish I had this person in my life the whole time, because it's just amazing. You know, sometimes when I have down days, I could just call my coach and be like, Joe, what's happening? And just explain, and just having someone to just be like, look, this is what we're going to do. Or like the other day, for example, I was feeling kind of burnt out in all that I was doing, and her just saying to me, I'm giving you permission to take some time off. Like, you need to take some time off because this, and this, and this. It just, that was just great for me on that particular day. And so, yeah, I just love having her around and in my life. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, totally. My coach is, I don't know what I would do without my coach. I think she's fantastic, and she holds me accountable, but also gives me the space I need to breathe. Because as a lawyer, I think sometimes, even with the stuff that I do that I enjoy, that I'm passionate about, sometimes I tend to lawyer it up and, you know, get really type A about it.
Yeah.
And she reminds me that it's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
That's why I'm doing it.
Exactly. Like, I'm just all over with that. You know, when you've got a business and you're doing the marketing and you're just trying to make sure you've got everything lined up, I'm in that lawyer mode of, let's just get it done. I just need to do it. And so, yeah, her reminding me that, hey, didn't you say you wanted to build this business so you have autonomy? And right now you're not giving yourself that. You're just going like as if someone's whipping you and causing you to meet the deadline. Like, you can just chill a little bit. And that's just great to have that.
How did you find your coach? How do you know it was the right person for you? Did you go through other coaches or?
Yeah, I looked around online and in different places. So I started with IPEC, which was where I did some of my coach training. I looked on their kind of directory, and then I looked online, and I came across Jo. I think I was searching for someone else actually, and she came up in my search, and then I went onto her site and she had a podcast, and I just listened to her podcast for a bit and kind of consumed some of her content. And then I joined one of her Facebook groups, and she put a challenge out, which I kind of did, and I saw that it yielded some really good results for me. And so I think just getting to know her through consuming her content first is what I did. And then I was like, you know what, she's definitely, you know, you can just tell when you hear the way someone speaks, and that her attitude towards coaching is what I really was drawn towards, because she's very much about the integrity of the profession and making sure that you're coaching from a place of being open and honest with people and just relying on your strengths. And I really like that, because I think although it is a great profession, I think there are some elements of it where it can come across as like people are just all about charging people loads of money just to not necessarily help them. But do you know what I mean? It can come across as maybe like I've heard people ask the question, is it like a pyramid scheme? Like, you're just coaching people to become coaches, to coach more coaches? Is that what it is? And so I was a bit skeptical as I was getting into it. I'm like, like, a lot of people seem to be doing, I don't know if this is this the right thing for me? But realizing from my coach training that actually it is a great work that people are doing, and then coming across Jo and her approach, I was like, yes, she's the right person for me.
I totally know what you mean. And I think that the more you're in the space of coaches and coaching, the more you see it and can feel like everybody's doing it. But I think it's still really useful to a lot of people out there, because most people are not doing it. And I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world if everybody had a coach. So
yeah, I think, and if you look at all of the most, influential people, or people that do so well in the kind of personal development space, or people that have achieved so much, so like Oprah and Marie Forleo, and like people that are just doing great things, they all have a coach, because they see the benefit of having that person in their lives.
Yes, definitely. I couldn't agree more. Amen. So you mentioned a while back that your coach had a podcast. So
Yeah.
I know someone else who has a podcast coming out.
Yay.
And I would love for you to chat a little bit about that and let us know what can we expect on your podcast.
Oh, I'm so excited that you've asked me this question. So my podcast is actually launching tomorrow. So it's launching and I am so excited because it's just been so fun just getting into it and recording it. I was doing blog posts on my site before and doing them was great. I actually like writing, but the whole process of getting them together and perfect and getting the right image to go with them and everything just seemed to be taking long, and I felt like I wasn't getting as much out there as I would like to. And I like to chat. So the podcast is an opportunity for me to share what I would be sharing in a blog post in terms of information that's going to be useful to people, and also an opportunity to have conversations like this with awesome women and learn so much from other people. So the podcast is called the More Than a Lawyer podcast, and it is aimed at lawyers and lawyer mums who have gone into their career, they've built themselves up, they enjoy what they do, but they appreciate that now that they've gone into motherhood, there's a whole nother element of their identity. And so that's where the more than a lawyer comes from. It's that, yes, the lawyer part is important, but there's other parts of your life that are also important. And it also feeds into not just motherhood, but you as a woman and lifestyle and fitness. And so the conversations that I'm having with people, it's not all lawyers. So I'm having conversations with people from various different backgrounds, but that are able to share something that's going to be helpful for a woman who is a lawyer and a mum who's trying to figure out the balance or the way that they can integrate the two in a way that works for them. And so, yeah, it's going to be awesome. So it's on iTunes. So if people want to listen, they should head over to iTunes and, of course, review it if you enjoy the episodes. And it's in various other places, but it's also on my website.
Yeah, fantastic. I actually listened to your first episode. So by the time people hear this, your podcast will be up and running, but I got to listen to your first little episode before we spoke, and I thought it was great. I could listen to you talk about motherhood and lawyering forever, so I'm really excited that you were putting this out. No, I think it's so great. So many women I talk to, because you know that I have 2 kids myself.
Yeah, they're so gorgeous, by the way. Oh my goodness.
Oh, thank you.
I was crushing on them on Facebook. I was like, oh, they're so cute.
Oh, I think they're the best. And so many young moms, I feel like, I'm sure you've heard this, say they're terrified to have kids because they just don't know how they would do it.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited that you have a podcast because now I can say, listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
Here's the answer.
It's awesome.
And if you need more help, call Janine. It's so great to know that there's a go-to resource, because I feel like so many people want to do this thing and it can be done and they should have resources, and to have a go-to place is fantastic.
Yes, I'm excited to be able to help people in this way. So it's good.
Wonderful. Before we wrap up, I just have a few quick questions. I want to get some short answers from you on for our listeners. And I just want to start with, what do you think is the key to living a life that you love?
The key to living a life that you love is to take some time to figure out what it is you want in your life. So especially for lawyers or people, career women who have decided that that's their path, what happens is people are like, right, this is what I need to do. And then they figure out the steps and then they start walking the journey. And along that way, you may change as a person, but people don't always shift their goals. And so what can happen is your lifestyle changes, like you have kids or you get married and your values shift, but you're still on the same path. And then that path doesn't always match up with how your life is now. And then that's what can cause discontent. So I always say to people, like, think about your life in the next 12 months. In an ideal world, if there were no barriers, no blocks, how would you want life to be in an emotional way, from your environment and from your financials perspective? And when you think about that and visualize what would be great for you, that's a good starting point, because then that gives you indicators as to what you should be working towards. And that may or may not mean that you stay within your profession, but I definitely think you need to take that time to figure that out.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I think really a foundation of all of this conversation is people feeling that they deserve to live a life they love.
Yes.
Because I think that sometimes people think that's not what life is about, and life should be hard, and life should be challenging, and life should be about overcoming obstacles and pleasing all these other people. And so I think once you accept that you can be happy and that you can live a life that's kind of beyond your imagination.
Yeah. There's so many people that will say like, oh, you know, life's like this, but what are you going to do? Like, you have to work, or what are you going to do? That's just how it is. And it's kind of like, well, no, are you really going to work your whole life hating your job just so that you can retire and hope to have a few years where you can then enjoy life? Like, why don't you start doing that now?
Yep. You are preaching to the choir, but I love it. So what do you think, what do you think sets apart those people who are able to accomplish this goal of living a life they love from those who kind of get stuck and say those self-deprecating things or settling type mentality comments to themselves?
I think I kind of touched on it a little while ago in the conversation, but I think it's getting away from worrying about what people think is a big one, because when the people that kind of just go and do it are often the people that say, do you know what, I know people are going to have something to say, but I'm going to do it anyway. And the ones that don't are the ones that worry that their actions are going to bring about kind of disapproving looks or comments from their peers and maybe family members. And I think that that's probably a really big part of it. And people need to remember that other people change their mind. So I have an example that's totally unrelated to this, but I used to wear my hair in dreadlocks. And before I decided to do that, people were like, no, Janine, why would you do that? Don't do that. Oh my goodness, how are you going to do that? You're going to be a lawyer. And I was like, no, I'm going to do it. And so I did it. And then after I did it, I used to style them really nicely, and they always used to look nice. And people were like, oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. The same people that were saying, don't do it.
Yep.
And then I decided after 5 years of having them that I wanted to change my hair again. And so I took them out, and then people were like, no, Janine, we love the dreadlocks, don't do it. And I was like, but you guys didn't even want me to have them in the first place. And so whenever I think about other people's opinions, I always remember that, because I'm like, if I would have listened in the first place, I wouldn't have done it. Right. And the same people are the people that were just loving it after I did it. So I say all that to say, just do what's right for you and don't worry about what other people think.
Definitely. And I think that you're right, that it's a constant process. You're always changing and evolving, and sometimes people forget that. And you got to just roll with the punches, but also be cognizant of the decisions you're making and that you're still on the right path.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a tough balance, but I think it's it's the real balance conversation that we should be having.
Yes, definitely.
So my very last question for you today is going to be, what is your best advice for someone who's at the very beginning of this journey and wanting to have this big life?
My best advice is to think about your network. You may or may not have heard that, you're the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And so if you're a person who wants to live an extraordinary life, or you want to live a life that just brings you joy, then surround yourself with people that have the same mindset or are living that type of life, because they're going to help you to, 1, realize that it's possible, and 2, keep you on the track moving forward. So if you surround yourself with people that are very negative and that would be like, no, there's no way you could do that, like, you're from this background, you can never live a life like that, then you're gonna believe that stuff. So I think it's absolutely imperative to find people that are going to pull you up, that are going to encourage you, that are going to be your cheerleaders while you're going through the journey to get to that place.
I think that's fantastic advice. And I want to just add that if you work in an environment in which people are very negative, you might be saying to yourself, where am I going to find people like that? I work 80 hours a week with the most negative people around. And so I would just advise you to listen to podcasts, read books, get online. There are people out there, and you can join communities and you can be in conversations, even if they're not in real life. There's so much out there, and you have access to all of it. So just look for it and you'll find it. And they can be real relationships that can really pull you up. And that's, for me, how I started. And I think that I would have been nowhere without kind of the encouragement of my daily podcast. And that's not just me trying to sell podcast here, but
I love podcasts. Like, I only came across them about 6 months ago, and I was just like, oh my goodness, this is a whole world.
Yeah, it's life-changing.
But it is life-changing. And, you know, like, we connected online. Like, it's just amazing. You can meet people that have a similar mindset so easily through things like Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups. And so just realize that we live in a time where it's so easy to connect with people outside of your usual circle. So you should really maximize that. And if you're a lawyer mum, I recently started the Lawyer Mums Network, which is a LinkedIn group. So if I'm plugging. So if you're interested in getting involved there, I'd be happy to have you join the group.
Yep. I am looking forward to being an active part of that group. So I definitely love everything you've had to say today. I'm so happy that you could come on and chat with me. And there's been lots of really great nuggets in there. So hopefully people can look for you online, on LinkedIn, on your website, and through your podcast. Is there anything else? We'll put all this in the show notes for people, but is there anything else that you kind of want to tell people that you're doing before we end this conversation?
Yes, just one thing. So I have realized while I was putting together my latest coaching package, which is called the Lawyer to Mum coaching package, I realized that one of the things that a lot of people struggle with is overwhelm. So when they're deciding on how am I going to juggle this life, how am I going to do this, they get overwhelmed, and that can sometimes stop them from moving forward. So I want to offer your listeners a free 30-minute overwhelm audit, where it's a call that we'll get on a call and we will just assess what is causing you the most overwhelm right now, and then I will give you some actionable strategies that you can implement to kind of help you move forward. So if you're interested, then you can get in touch with me and we can arrange that.
Fantastic. We will put all the information of how to do that in the show notes. Thank you so much for that. We really appreciate it. And I'm sure people will look forward to hearing your advice.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to having you on my podcast too.
Yes, soon. I look forward to it.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you so much, Janine. Thank you for joining me for the Happy Lawyer Project podcast. Please head over to my website, www.thehappylawyerproject.com, for more information from today's show. While you're there, I'd love it if you'd leave me your thoughts on the show. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or follow me on Instagram. If you've enjoyed the show, please share it with your friends. And don't forget to head over to iTunes to subscribe and review the show. As you know, each rating helps more listeners find the show and helps me get awesome guests on here for you guys. If there's anyone you'd like me to have on the show, or if you'd like to be on the show, head over to my website and let me know, or send me an email at okema, OKEOMA, @thehappylawyerproject.com. A special thanks to everyone who's left a review, sent me an email, or reached out to me in any way. I appreciate you. Thank you again for spending this time with me, and if you would like to learn more about working in your gift and living your passion, head over to the website for a free gift. Until next time, bye!